Anyway, we blow past all this and we finally made it to Big Mama's house. I can't believe this dude over here never noticed Otacon was following him.
Who's there?
I'm here to see Big Mama.
This dude just drops an apple. He just had an apple and he dropped it. Oh dag, y'all, it's Eva. Still doing the whole cleavage thing, but aren't we all? Aside from the reference in the opening, this is our first serious Metal Gear Solid 3 pull, and oh boy is it a pull. Listen, up until now I know I've nitpicked a lot. I've been very negative about some things, very up close and critical, but in truth, I wouldn't have even considered talking about Metal Gear Solid 4 like this if the entire game stayed consistent for the first 2 acts. The first 2 acts of Metal Gear Solid 4 on their own work. They're goofy, there's too many cutscenes, the cutscenes are too long, the writing and the action scenes are pretty campy, the game is all in all pretty up its own ass. But that's true of every Metal Gear game. And somehow they all work. It's hard to explain what I mean, and not everyone is going to feel this way, but you just have to play the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games. They're silly, but they work. The first 3 Metal Gear Solid games have a tone and a goal and a style of gameplay, and the story, twists and all, behaves one way throughout, serving a theme and a purpose. That's true of the first 2 acts of Metal Gear Solid 4. They both take place in active combat zones where you can befriend soldiers who are rebelling against PMCs under Liquid's control. Yeah, the fighting here isn't relevant to your job specifically, but this whole game could have been set in danger zones with rebels everywhere, and the connection you build with them matters over the course of the game, and you help each other fight back in this world where war is everywhere and the Patriots in Outer Heaven are pulling the strings. But I'm so much more critical of all of that stuff because it feels like it doesn't really matter at all, because none of it comes back after Act 2. Because everything changes in Act 3. If you were to pinpoint where Metal Gear Solid 4 becomes unsalvageably fucked, it's this cutscene. The one where the dude drops the apple. This is, for the purposes of this video, the explanation of the Patriots. The shadowy, completely mysterious, untouchable organization that controls everything. This is the end of the facade. This is when, in The Wizard of Oz, we see the man behind the curtain. And he's not particularly impressive. I don't think that's how you're supposed to feel, but it's how you feel all the same. Alright, let's go. Eva is the surrogate mother that bore the clones of Big Boss. Big Boss's femme fatale for Metal Gear Solid 3 is now kind of the mother of Big Boss's kind of children. How was she in the right place at the right time to play this role? She was a founding member of the Patriots. The Patriots were created by Zero from Metal Gear Solid 3 during the Cold War in order to, quote-unquote, manage and control the American state. Sometime between Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear Solid 1, the Patriots became AIs fulfilling Zero's role. They created the war economy. Then we recount the plot of Snake Eater with some Genesis metaphors that don't really make any sense, and then we follow up after Eva gets kicked out of China. I guess she just met with the people she double-crossed after failing the nation she double-crossed them for, and then said, hey, can we be friends again? Zero used the money Eva failed to steal to form a secret society with the intent of fulfilling the boss's dream of a united world after, I assume, misunderstanding what he heard from a man who misunderstood what she said and then invited Eva. Other original members include Big Boss, Sigint, Paramedic, and Ocelot. I know, give me 1 second.
Boss.
The Boss was a legendary hero from the Second World War, known as the Mother of Special Forces. She had an almost overwhelming charisma about her. The CIA feared this, so they had her eliminated.
That's not what happened. That doesn't even really make sense as a metaphor for what happened. Yeah, her skills and charisma made her the only person both valuable and capable enough to convince Fulgen she had defected, leading to her becoming a necessary sacrifice to ease Cold War tension, but the CIA didn't have a problem with her charisma. Anyway, Zero propped up Big Boss as a symbol of their ideals, hyping him up as a hero and a legend. He used the power of Big Boss's name to draw in power for the Patriots.
Every era needs its symbols to control the people. Whether it be the stars and stripes, or the hammer and sickle.
Wow, that really made me think.
Big Boss and Zero began fighting, and worried about losing his symbol, he had Paramedic clone Big Boss.
I loved him. 9 months later, I gave birth to 2 big bosses.
Okay, but don't say it like that. Zero cloning him without his permission made Big Boss say, wow, okay, what the fuck, I'm done with you, you're all nuts. Then he takes off and makes Outer Heaven. Zero snowballs his way into mass control. Eva just outright says that Zero and Big Boss both misinterpreted the boss's will.
And their absolute reverence for her drove them apart.
God, the fucking shots in these scenes. Get it? It's like religion. Who made this painting? Hence, the Patriots as we know them. Eva says that all of this was because of a misunderstanding and small differences in ideology. Jot that down, that's important. Big Boss returns to command Foxhound and stages the Outer Heaven and Zanzibar Land incidents as a coup against Zero. These are the events of Metal Gear 1 and 2. Zero was behind Gray Fox's reconstruction as a cyborg ninja. Zero got Big Boss's body and turned it into a key because he has a weird obsession with Big Boss because everyone does, including Kojima. Big Boss turning his back on him made him really sad and led to his desire to control information, hence Metal Gear Solid 2 leading into Metal Gear Solid 4.
Sounds almost like a religion.
Sigint is the DARPA chief now? Really? We're going with that?
It's true.
Paramedic and Sigint are both dead. Naomi was brought in to do everything. Ocelot took off and did his own thing because of his crush on Big Boss. At some point, Raiden and Eva met up. Raiden wanted Sonny, Eva wanted Big Boss, and neither of them are big fans of the Patriots, so mutual interest, and that's how we got here. Eva takes us out back and shows us quote-unquote Big Boss's body, which is being kept alive, and his consciousness is being contained by nanomachines because of fucking course it is. We get a call from Otacon. Naomi's gone. Then this happens and it's wacky time again. Turns out Liquid found us and the PMCs are after us. We gotta grab Big Boss's body and go because he's literally the key to all of this. Suddenly Eva starts talking again because I guess we need another really quick, really shallow, really on-the-nose criticism of video game culture before we go.
Nowadays, anyone with a computer can get combat training. The FPS games that these children love are distributed for free by these companies. They think it's cool to fight like this.
And then we're doing this again.
Hold on to me. With so many wars being waged.
Stop talking!
Here we go!
This transitions into the second on-the-rail shooting segment in the game, and then this cutscene is finally over. So, as Mr. Fusion says they say in Paris is burning, let me put on my reading glasses, cause the library's open. There's a lot that immediately registers as completely ridiculous here. Zero, Sigint, and Paramedic are the Patriots. Really? These jokers from Metal Gear Solid 3?
2004 will be Godzilla's 50th birthday.
You think they're still going to be making Godzilla movies then?
Of course! Everybody loves Godzilla.
Tom was one of the unlucky tunnels. It was discovered by the Nazis before it was finished. I watched the movie again just to make sure. In fact, I even ordered the actual film from the movie company.
A big drama staged by what?
My good friends who would never hurt me, why would you do that, Kojima? But that's not the main issue here. It's just a symptom of a huge problem that arises right here and almost ruins this game. This game should not have been about Big Boss. Now, if you've played all the Metal Gear games, you might be thinking, how can this not be about Big Boss? Isn't Big Boss the guy who caused all of this? Well, he wasn't. Before. Here's what we knew about Big Boss before this game. Big Boss was the villain of Metal Gear 1 and 2. These two games are very similar and the second one is better, but they are both canon. Big Boss was a legendary soldier and the commander of Foxhound, and in 1995 sent Gray Fox to infiltrate the independent military nation of Outer Heaven in South Africa due to information received by the US indicating that Outer Heaven was developing a dangerous nuclear weapon. Gray Fox was captured, so Big Boss sent the rookie Solid Snake next. Big Boss was actually the leader of Outer Heaven and fully expected Snake to fail his mission, but Snake kicked everyone's ass and discovered that the weapon they were developing was a Metal Gear. On the way out, Big Boss meets Solid Snake face to face. They fight and Big Boss supposedly dies. This is later retconned by Metal Gear Solid 5, but that doesn't matter. Outer Heaven is destroyed and Snake goes home, but it turns out Big Boss is alive. By 1999, almost every nation in the world has disposed of its nuclear weapons, with the exception of a small, recently independent military nation, Zanzibar Land. Sound familiar? Zanzibar Land has been attacking neighboring countries, stealing nuclear weapons. Roy Campbell sent Snake into Zanzibar Land to save some guy, and a bunch of shit happens. Turns out that Big Boss was pulling the strings behind Zanzibar Land, and Grey Fox continued to work for him. Snake fights Grey Fox, and Grey Fox mostly dies. Then Snake meets Big Boss again. Big Boss explains that his goal is to perpetuate war, to give soldiers like the two of them a place and a purpose, because a soldier's mind can never leave the battlefield until they're killed. Big Boss is a war criminal who tried twice to create an all-powerful nation of soldiers because he believed in this idea more than anything. Metal Gear Solid 3 takes place before the first two Metal Gear games, and Big Boss is the protagonist. It's also like the best fucking game ever, but that's not important. In this game, Big Boss is a regular soldier and a good person, but a whole bunch of extenuating circumstances lead to a situation where he has to kill his mentor. Before he does, though, she explains her dream of a united world and how the division between nations and ideologies made this tragic situation unavoidable. This changes Big Boss permanently and leads him to do the horrible things he did in the first two Metal Gear games, not because he's a villain by blood, but because he wanted to create a united world as he believed was the best way to do it. Then he dies. He is a person of importance and outstanding personal qualities who falls to disaster through a combination of a personal failing and circumstances with which he cannot deal. Big Boss, the person, has nothing to do with Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, but his legacy and impact on the world are still felt through the actions of the men who were meant to be his successors. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 have a thematic connection, but the literal events of the two games have almost nothing to do with each other, and they're better for it. Metal Gear Solid 3 being a prequel with nothing to do with Metal Gear Solid 2 was a genius move for two reasons. One, a lot of people didn't like Metal Gear Solid 2. A lot of people did, but it was mixed. So now, instead of having to continue the story of a game a lot of people don't like, we can return to form with a prequel much more in the spirit of the first Metal Gear Solid, which is still pretty universally popular, while also taking that chance to expand on Big Boss's character and add some depth to the entire rest of the series. And aside from some camera issues with the initial release, history looks pretty fondly on Metal Gear Solid 3. In many ways, it's still the perfect Metal Gear game, and it adds depth to the games that had already come out, as any good prequel should. If this game weren't handled as well, it could be the type of prequel that makes a bunch of connections that didn't need to be made, and while there is a little bit of that, it's mostly pretty reserved. The other reason making it a prequel was so brilliant is what I explained before. Metal Gear Solid 2 didn't need a follow-up. It's its own perfect conclusion. It introduced a lot of mysteries, but they're meant to go unanswered to serve that game's goals. We take a step back and re-examine a story we're less familiar with. So Metal Gear Solid 3 comes out. We did it. 3 of the best games ever made. All in the same series. But now we got a problem. We gotta make a Metal Gear Solid 4. And we're going in with the intent of following up Metal Gear Solid 2 directly, and we know we're going to turn the Patriots into a target that we're going to have to take down by the end of the game. A flawed premise on its own, yes, but not impossible to work with. However, the most recent Metal Gear Solid is Metal Gear Solid 3, a prequel, and people really liked that one. That one revolved around Big Boss, so we're trying to do in Metal Gear Solid 4 what we did in Metal Gear Solid 2. Only instead of making a point about how Solid Snake became a huge icon and not letting you play as him, we have a couple of throwaway lines about how Big Boss is a similar sort of icon in this world. This is developed more in later games, Peace Walker and 5, but here and right now it's just the seed of an idea and some more lazy pod shots at people who play video games and get too into their war games. I'm not against that on principle. It worked really well in Metal Gear Solid 2, but this game really doesn't take the time to make it work again. As a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 3, we're just kind of dragging up Big Boss and his team to try to give them a place in a story set 50 years after their story. As a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 2, we have to answer the mystery presented in that game surrounding the Patriots. We have to give them a face, but it can't be a new set of faces because that's not a reveal, so it had to be a set of faces we already know, but nobody in the West played the first two Metal Gear games, so it has to be characters from Metal Gear Solid 3. And the only American characters in that game are the team of Operation Snake Eater, so bam! Problem solved. The Patriots are these guys. These fucking guys. No, seriously. Suddenly the Patriots are all about their warped understanding of the boss's will. Spoiler alert, when Solid Snake takes down the Patriots, he's inadvertently fulfilling the boss's dream of a united world. Can you imagine how powerful that would have been if nothing from Snake Eater was mentioned in this game? If the genetically inferior clone of Big Boss and his comrades managed to take down the Patriots and unite the world without ever knowing who the boss was, wouldn't that have been wonderful? To have the next generation save the world just by being good people and having better ideas from the one that came before? And to have us, the players, put those pieces together and understand what happened ourselves? Not to have it all shoved in our faces with hours of dialogue explaining how many times we were tricked as we played a role in this 9-dimensional chess game between characters who I really liked a couple of years ago, but I'll never be able to look at the same way again because because they were sacrificed for the checklist of goals that a fourth Metal Gear Solid game had to achieve, but that's just not the case. So Paramedic made the clones of Big Boss. The DARPA chief is Sagan. Zero is the man behind the Patriots. If you had said that before Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, the dumbest people on the internet would have laughed in your fucking face. And suddenly this story revolves around Big Boss. And it didn't need to. This game shouldn't have been about Big Boss. But it is now. And we gotta move on.